Okay, so let's just give it a couple seconds. And we are live. Hello, everybody. Hi. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, Claudia. How are you today?
Doing great, doing great. Always happy here to be with you. Hello, everybody, to another episode of FreudenFreude's live stream. Today we are going to talk on follow through and accountability on your goals action plan. Over the last week, we talked about what success would look like for you, what you would be after, how you might consider putting goals in place to go towards that, and action plans and so on. So this would kind of be a logical continuation of that. Once you have your action plan, now what? Now what?
Now what? It's true. So I was thinking today about, once you set up your goals, like you said, now what? What are you going to do? How are you going to motivate yourself? Because let's be honest, you start off with all this motivation. You start off very happy, very excited. You're going to do this, right? Exactly. But then happy somehow starts shrinking. Like all these doubts start coming through. You start doubting yourself. You start wondering, you start fearing. You don't know what to do next. And you wonder why you made those plans. And, all these saboteurs just start coming through. And it's very normal, not to mention fear, anxiety, all of the things that we tend to normally do. And that's what I want people to know. I want people to know that these are normal tendencies that we do.
Absolutely. And I think it's all the more pronounced in cases where it's a really big goal that's going to take you a long time. And where there's not necessarily also a indicator on the way whether you're making progress. Some goals are like that, right? Like you do and you do and you plot and you plot and you do and you do, but you're not getting these in the moment kind of this in the moment kind of feedback that tells you that you're making progress. You're making progress. So those can be really challenging. And then, oh my God, if then on top of that, you've hit some roadblocks, if you have to take a couple steps back because what you tried didn't really work, then it's really tricky sometimes to reach deep into your resilience and keep going with renewed motivation and renewed, after you learned what didn't work, start on a new path. So people, you're not alone, right?
Exactly. Sometimes it feels like there are more dreams than achievable, right? But then we're going to talk about why does it feel like this? Why do we do that to ourselves? So what I have realized is that what we're missing is candor. There's a lot of candor missing, both from the leadership side. Okay, let's put clear. We're talking about all goals. These can be office goals. This can be professional goals. This can be personal goals. At the end of the day, the fear, the anxiety, the doubts, the saboteurs, everything is the same. Because you start doubting about your options, you start doubting about your decisions, right? And you start wondering, did I make the right decision? Was it the right decision? Because like we say in coaching, for every decision that you say yes to, there's a decision that you're saying no to, right? And so you start doubting and saying, did I make the right decision? And so we miss being kinder to ourselves. We miss giving ourselves kinder feedback and speaking to ourselves with more empathy, right? it's a little bit hard to describe when you are not in that position where you're finding yourself to do long goals, right? It's more practical. I can tell people that you want to do shorter goals or divide your goals into blocks.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. Instead of having something that will take you, let's say, 2 years to get to a yay or nay or a success or failure kind of thing, kind of breaking it down into more achievable, small chunks with milestones and, wait for it, rewards. Yes, people, rewards, it's our favorite.
Yes.
That is really important. I think
Yes.
that we give ourselves just kind of empathetic pat on the shoulder, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to do it yourself. You can't wait for other people to do it necessarily.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
you remember, we are self-responsible
Yep.
in our goals and their attainment. I
Yes.
think that is a really good one. Just being kind to yourself, especially when times get rough, when progress is maybe slower than you would like.
Mm-hmm.
To
Mm-hmm.
just, it's part of life. Life is not comfortable. Life is not easy. That's just how it is. Okay.
Right. That's
But
right.
you mentioned a very strong word earlier, and that is candor. Candor. Um, I think that on our journey, we are allowed to change our minds. We
Okay.
are allowed to say when things are not going well. We're allowed to be blunt with ourselves and just stating the reality. I think that it is not helpful to anybody, and also not the achievement of the overall goal, if you keep forcing to see the world through rose-colored glasses when it's just not the reality. So I think there's this realistic look at what really is happening, and just kind of sometimes tough job of being candid with ourselves, ruthlessly so, that we
Yes.
on the wrong path, we are wasting our time. Whatever we're trying to do right now isn't working,
Mm-hmm.
isn't working. Um, you know, it's part of the whole thing. It's not everything goes in a linear straight line, was you do this, you put this effort in, and 100% of the time you're going to get exactly what you want. Very often that's not the case. Very often
Exactly.
it's not the case. Yeah.
Yes.
Stuff is just way too complex. Also, especially if the goal has elements of human transformation,
Mm.
where you have to change yourself, or your body, or your mind, or your environment to some extent, which already reaches outside of potentially your sphere of influence. But that candor, I think, is important. And the more brutally honest you can be, I think the more valid, concrete data you have to base your decisions on.
Yeah, let's remember that it takes vulnerability to admit that sometimes things are not going your way. And it takes vulnerability to accept feedback of the things that are not working, right? Because we set our own goals, but we forget that part of setting the goals also is to consider what others or how others can help us, right? And how we're going to receive the feedback at the end of the day of how we perform what we did. And so that feedback has to be filled with candor, because there is no other way to achieve things. Because the truth is that morale is just all the motivation, all the morale just goes to where, because you suddenly feel shamed right? Because that's when shame appears, because you didn't achieve the goal, because you probably made the wrong decisions. And then you have fear, which is, again, something very normal. And I want people to know this. Fear and anxiety is something that pops up every time you have to make the hard decisions.
Mhm.
And you can't do anything about it. What matters is what you do to get over it, which is to say, it's going to happen. I'm going to feel this. Now, what's the next step? Which is evaluate, right? Evaluate where you are. What's realistic? What are your resources to achieve the things that you have or you want to achieve? I'm sorry. So again, remember that you're going to be vulnerable throughout the process because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail, but you're going to learn. And then you're going to make more realistic goals, right? So why don't we start with giving people an idea of what's next, what now?
Yeah, so I just want to touch on a couple of things that you said. Very, very well done, Sandra, mentioning all this. The first one is some people might not really know that what they feel is anxiety or fear. Sometimes it's just this uncomfortable feeling, maybe this knot in their stomach sometimes, or the tightness in their throat. Yeah, I mean, these bodily sensations, or just stress, they just feel a little bit stressed. And, just that thing of discomfort that comes up, whether it falls, like medically speaking, into the fear bucket or the anxiety bucket or whatever, in the end, it's all, just a matter of there's something happening that's out of the extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And we're reaching kind of the edges of our comfort zone. The edges of our comfort zone. So, and we do that every time that there's something to learn. Every time there's something to learn, we're reaching that place, and we have to kind of push against this edge and venture out a little bit. And that, by its very nature, is not always a comfortable place to be. But there's this beautiful metaphor, actually, for this. It's, if you take a crustacean, like a lobster, right? They are stuck in their exoskeleton shell as they're growing. And it gets really tight in there, and it gets really uncomfortable. And then imagine what? He needs to get rid of his outer shell. He has to, I don't know, what's the English word? Break out of it, break out of the shell. And this poor creature is like naked, kind of, right? And very vulnerable in that sense. He can be very easily hurt and whatever. But that is what is required for this animal to grow. Literally, physically grow until he then develops its new shell. And this is kind of the same thing. At some point, whatever you have achieved on your path, on your journey, it becomes too tight. And unless you become okay with living in that way, which is your prerogative, you don't need to change. Okay. But if you decide to change, there is these growing pains attached to it, right? And that is inherently not comfortable. So a lot of people, in my experience, when they feel this discomfort, they stop. Because they don't realize that it's just a normal part of the whole process. You can't get around it, really. There's very rarely any growth or true transformation, that's fundamental transformation, without that price that you pay.
That's correct.
Just like when you want to build muscles, you have to go to the gym and sweat. Okay, it's price that you have to pay. And, if you always just wait for the easy peasy, no effort, no pain way of making valuable, fundamental things happen, you're going to wait a very long time. And
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of energy finding the easy way rather than just doing what needs to be done. Yeah.
Correct.
So I think understanding that sets kind of the groundwork that, yes, sometimes it's going to not be comfortable. That is just how it is. Yeah. So sorry if I went a little bit on a ramble there.
Oh, no.
What did you want to touch on next, Sandra?
Well, I was thinking about, we can start by talking about what's next, really give our viewers or listeners what they came for. But I wanted to tell people that some days are just going to feel that you have the motivation. What you don't see is the reward, like Claudia was saying, right? You don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And so I want people to see, for example, for me, today has been a rough day. Like you can see it. Today, I've had writer's block, and I tried everything on my list. And the only thing that actually helped me was to just step away. Step away and give myself a break, because I have been, working on my project for the past 3 days nonstop. And you're eventually going to start wondering if where you're going is the right way to go. And you start doubting yourself. So I want people to know that today I felt everything that we're talking about. I started feeling the saboteurs, started feeling that grumbling telling me, what are you doing? You don't know this. It's going to take you forever. What, a year, 2 years? What's your goal? What's your intention? So you start thinking, am I going on the right path? And I just felt like it was a good idea to start writing everything that I was feeling. And it made me realize that it was just nothing more than just saboteurs, that it was just, the typical question, who do you think you are? Right?
Right.
When you go solo, because that's the truth, setting a goal is going solo. It's going out there and trying to reach something different than everybody else. Or if it's a communal goal, well, yeah, it's easier because you have the support of other people, right? So always go to those people and ask for help. That is very important, which is what I did. I went and asked for help, and it was so easy. I relaxed, and the whole process began again. I always realized that when you feel blocked, you have to write down step by step what went wrong, or what am I feeling? Like you were saying, Claudia, you have to live with your emotions, with your vulnerability. You have to understand them, where you feel them, and why are you feeling them. And normally it's because it's the journey of the unknown.
Yes,
How is it going to turn out, right?
Yeah, very well said. Very well said. You touch on two things here, I think, that are important to mention, or to really say again. Maybe the first one is having a support network, having accountability partners, having people that can support you on your journey, even if it's ultimately you who has to put in the work and the effort and make it happen. But have people around you that support you and understand you and give you sometimes just a shoulder to cry on as well, right? And point you back into the right direction. The other thing, and I think that is a fundamental thing also regarding our motivation. These goals that we set ourselves are most of the time truly in service of a larger fundamental value or life goal and things like that. Well, those things sometimes are quite abstract, even though our goals are concrete. So when we get stuck in, let's say, the drama of the day or the drama of the week, as we try to make progress towards this concrete goal, stepping away allows us to first again see the forest for the trees. Yeah, like getting just a little bit more of a view, looking back and saying, oh, I did make so much progress already. Oh, the goal that I really want to have is this. But then even going into the whole even higher level and saying, yes, I chose this goal because this is ultimately what I want to achieve in my life. This is what success looks like for me, and I made this decision based on that. So truly reconnecting this maybe tedious, nasty, difficult thing that you're just trying to get through today, reconnecting it to the broader and overarching thing that you want to achieve. I think that that takes the stepping away and taking a broader look. It's not something that is necessarily a given. It requires effort to keep the bigger 30,000-foot view, right? The eagle view instead of the ant's view. Eagle, ant, right? So you know, the procrastination and the tiredness and the stress comes from doing the ant's work. But ultimately, we do that so that we can achieve big goals. Big goals and big overarching life goals, let's say, like to really things that drive us. So the more the ant knows that and remembers that there's this big goal, this big purpose behind it, the easier it can get along and do its work.
You know, you mentioned something about procrastination, and I wanted to give people this insight about procrastination. Usually you procrastinate not because you're lazy or because you just don't want to or you're not motivated. Sometimes it has to do with your ability to solve the problem or how you're going to do it. It's really hard when you're faced with something that you start thinking about how complex it is, what it requires, the research, the process, everything. It starts becoming a little bit overwhelming, and you suddenly feel like, I can't deal with this. So you start procrastinating, and procrastination usually is doing something else that makes you feel like you are achieving something. So you go in search of those little goals that make you feel like, yay, I achieved something, I was productive, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, but you have to ask yourself, what am I running away from, or what am I protecting? Am I protecting my ego, right? Because if it doesn't come out good, you're going to feel bad about it, or you're going to feel judged. People are going to start talking, and, you are set to the mercy of other people's expectation. And that is something that also needs to be cleared up, that you have options, that your decisions are yours, and comments and chit-chat, office chit-chat, and other people's expectations is there to manage, not yours to handle. Because let's remember, sometimes some of us have to deal with peer pressure when setting up goals in the office, right? Because we're having to perform, we're having to achieve, we're having to produce. And so we're constantly trying to find ways to be better and better and better. I want people to realize that you have options. You do have options. You can say, right now, this is not a value that I want to pursue. It's not my value, right? It's not serving me. So at this time, I'm going to let it go. And there's nothing wrong with just simply letting go.
Yeah. Yeah, it comes back to, that it's your prerogative to change your mind. Following and dealing with collective or team goals is a whole other bag of worms that, would warrant their own discussions maybe at some different time. So if it's okay with you, Sandra, maybe we should kind of keep it on a personal, individual level for this episode, because the collective goals and working as a team, that's a whole other thing, and how do you deal with that as a leader is a whole other topic, essentially.
Right. And it also has to do, we have to go into leadership and talk about all those kind of things, which is not what we're going to talk about today. But the whole point of this is to understand that where procrastination comes from. And at the end of the day, you have to analyze if the goal that you set yourself is probably a little bit unachievable, because most probably you did not do your homework in understanding what you needed, what you were missing, so that you can achieve it, right? Again, it goes back to what resources you have in hand so that you can prepare either to build that skill or harness it or whatever you need to do. It's necessary that you do your research before you actually set that goal.
Yeah, but I that's all right and good, and I agree with that. I believe, though, as well, that sometimes procrastination just stems from our unwillingness to do the uncomfortable work. Sometimes it is just that we know it is going to be tedious, and we're maybe more in love with what we want to achieve than with actually the process of achieving it. Yeah. Some people want to have an education, but they don't want to study. It's kind of like that, right? So I think that just coming to grips again, and sorry if I'm repeating myself, with just facing the discomfort and doing it anyway, just doing it, I think also helps with just getting rid of that procrastination. For instance, I have a small business. Obviously, I have my coaching practice. I do not like to do expense reports or put data into my bookkeeping thing. It's one of my, just like, is it difficult? No. Does it need to be done? Yes. When I signed up to having a business, that was kind of part of the whole spiel, right? But do I procrastinate? Oh, yes. I do procrastinate to do that. So I think that sometimes it's not related to skills. It's not related to, it's a goal that is unachievable. I really think that it is just plain avoidance of a tedious task. Well, let's say it how it is. Let's say it. And it's okay. And if at the end it gets done, if it gets done at 10 minutes to midnight on April 15th, just before tax time, then it's still good enough. Yes, but I think that procrastination can also just come from that, from our expectation that it should be easy.
That's true. It kind of brings me to habits. What kind of habits do you have? And because you can actually make a goal a habit. You can actually, for example, we have habits that are kind of set because of social norms, right? Such as brushing our teeth, taking a bath, looking the best that we can, showing up, etc., etc. Those are things that were kind of imposed onto us because it's part of living in a society. So at the end of the day, the goal is to show up to work, look your best, right? That's the goal. But when you start brushing your teeth, you take a shower, you have breakfast, you start doing all of these kind of things. So the goal is for you to produce, for you to go to work and do what you have to do. So now, to have a goal, what you need to understand is, what are your habits? What are you doing? Is there a habit that you can drop? Because most of the times, like they say, in order to receive new information, you have to let go of the old, right? You have to let go of what is not serving you so that you can start bringing in what's going to help you achieve those goals. So habits, it's one of the biggest things. So for example, a habit can be, and this might be one of the examples that we can give, one of the tips is, as soon as something pops up, just to kind of get rid, it kind of has to do with habits, with procrastination. So as soon as you think about it, that you're thinking, I have to do this, set yourself that goal to say, as soon as I think about it, I'm going to get up and do what I have to do. And you do it. And it didn't take you more than 3 minutes, 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And then you sit down again and you can continue doing what you were doing. I realized that today. I was thinking of so many things and I achieved them all. But it's because sometimes you get sidetracked. That's one of the things that you were talking about, right, Claudia, about finding roadblocks. It's not a roadblock, but it doesn't help you to continue thinking, to focus, right? Yeah. So I think one of the tips that I can give is, as soon as you think about it, go and do it. If you have to write an email, write the email. And you don't have to send it. You can simply start it, right? Yeah, so it's just a habit. It's start doing it. Start, just have those 5 seconds. Don't give yourself permission to let go of it.
Yeah, because even David Allen in his GTD, or Getting Things Done methodology, actually made this quite explicit. He called it, I believe, the 2-minute rule. If anything would require less than 2 minutes to do, just drop whatever you're doing and do it straight away. Because the effort of keeping track of it and writing it onto your to-do list, and then later context switch back to that in order to accomplish it, takes way more than 2 minutes oftentimes. So it's not like if you leave this 2-minute thing by the wayside that you don't need to track it. It takes up mental real estate. It takes up mental real estate, and it is going, especially if it's one of those nagging little things that doesn't give you peace of mind. We all know what they are. It's going to be counterproductive to keep pushing it off. So in those cases, yes, if you can do it, just do it straight away and get it done and check it off and continue doing with what you're doing. Otherwise, of course, also if it's something that is a little bit, and sorry if we get tactical here, but just because we touched on the concept of mental real estate, like getting stuff out of your random access memory, your conscious attention, and get it away from there, capturing it on lists, in books, on notes, whatever, in order to allow you to be in a fully open, functioning state without these distractions, because distractions don't need to necessarily be external. It's not necessarily your phone that rings or the email that pops up or whatever. You can also be fundamentally distracted by what goes on in your head, by unresolved issues, by the drama of the day and things like that. We see this in coaching quite a bit, that our clients cannot focus on the greater more pronounced things that they even come to the coaching for, let's say, leadership development or whatever, they can't make any headway whatsoever if they have, for instance, an ongoing conflict with a subordinate, or if they have some unresolved family issue, or they're just tired. Yeah, sometimes these mental things can be detractors, very pronouncedly so, that then keep you from doing your best work and progressing on your goals. So putting these things, even just temporarily, to bed by capturing them somewhere, that you can rest in the knowledge that it's not going to get lost. The world is going to survive for the next half hour if you don't give it your full attention. So to just park it, take this mental noise and try to park it so that you're open and relaxed and calm enough to really make good progress on whatever really it is that you're working on. And the more tedious the task at hand is, the more readily we give in to that noise. Right? So if there's this distractor that's happening, sometimes it's a very welcome thing that we give into, instead of doing this maybe tedious work that we need to do towards our goal. So say no to the distraction, external or internal, park it, and just do what needs to be done. Yeah.
Look, one of the things that that I was talking about earlier was the resources that you have. Now, iPhone has a option about a focus something. I can't remember how is it called. So you set it up where you set focus reading time, and for the next 2 hours, no text, no calls, no emails, nothing. It just completely blocks everything, so that in those 2 hours, you are doing what you need to do. And I like that. But the anxiety that we have, the society that we have built, right, is that need of having to check your cell phone, turning the page, looking at something else, and you're exhausted. Well, that's when you have the Pomodoro. Again, you have techniques, you have resources. So what are your resources to produce? You have to tap into all of that. And if one of your resources is technology, which it's obvious that's what we constantly work with all the time, we'll do that, right? For me, for example, so that I can focus in the conversations that Claudia and I have, I only put Claudia in the screen. If I were to put myself side by side to Claudia, I would be completely distracted, because it is very human of us to look at us. How do we look? Is my hair like this? And then you start getting sidetracked and you're not paying attention. So that's just a simple example of sometimes how technology is the problem, but then at the same time, you have the solution. So work with it. You make it work for you.
Good point. Yeah. I think that this shows, again, this whole conversation shows that truly this following up on this action plan and making progress towards the goals happens on different layers. There's the fundamentally logistical and tactical layer. What are you actually going to do today? But then there's also the higher level layer of what is the goal, really? Keeping it front and center, the larger, brilliant goal, right? I mean, was like, the ultimate success like thing, and shiny and glitter and lights and and confetti and all that kind of stuff when we reach it. Keeping that in mind, I think, is very, very important at all times. And so just to borrow from an oldie but goodie of like the 1 minute manager, if you remember, to write your goals concisely onto one sheet of paper, not having too many of them either, but concisely writing it down, and so that it takes no longer than 1 minute. That's actually one of the reasons why it's called the 1 minute manager, that it does not take more than 1 minute to read and reassess, am I making progress towards it? Is what I'm doing right now in service of me reaching this or not? Because sometimes it isn't. We get caught in busyness that Sandra referred to earlier, and keeping it front and center, looking at it regularly, maybe having it on the wall or on the whiteboard in your workspace, or we always say like to post it on the mirror. But no matter what it takes for you to remain conscious of the larger goal, and even the much more overarching purpose and overarching success that you're after, that this goal is in service of. Right. Because there's this, there's the low level and there's the higher level. And I think that we keep circling around it, and, then we give a tip, and it's a tip on the lower level. And I want to always, also with my clients, keep it also at a level that you don't lose track of the larger fundamental things that you're trying to achieve. Okay. So if the going really gets tough and following through on these action plans, it might just be because of today's to-do list or this week's to-do list. And maybe there's nothing wrong with your progress that you're making. There's nothing wrong, if you want to judge like that, with the actual goal. It's just that, you get stuck potentially in following up on the to-do list of the day. So I think that it's quite often important to keep these in check. And so really having this visual in concise, clear terms with what does it mean, how will I know that I have achieved this goal or not, by when, and so on, is really going to be quite important. For instance, you want to take a course. Let's say on Coursera or something like that. You want to take a course, you know that it's kind of up to you, it's kind of self-guided, it's 6 weeks that you're allotted to do this. Sometimes you do these things maybe after work or whatever. Sometimes you go through a topic or a video or a reading assignment in this course, and it's tedious. It's like you're just not in it. Always keeping your in the back of your mind that you take this course maybe because you want to have a new skill that allows you to do your job better. Maybe in my case it would be that I can serve my clients better. All these kind of things, keeping that in mind is going to make it possible for you to continue watching one more video, doing one more reading assignment, despite the fact that it's being hard. I really believe that it is what can help remind you constantly of what's at stake. Because otherwise it's very challenging because of the temporal horizon. If you remember, stuff that is right now and in the immediate carries more weight than something that is further away. So the discomfort of right now is in our brain considered more important than the achievement of a goal 6 weeks from now. no matter how fabulous it is, and no matter how much we want it, the right here and now always trumps then and there. It does.
Mhm.
That's just the way that us humans are wired. So the only way that we can cognitively deal with this is to make the pleasure more pleasurable and
Mhm.
make the pain less painful.
Mhm.
And that is an expectation game. That is a perspective game. So we can still affect a little bit how painful the painful is and
Yes.
how pleasurable the pleasure is. Okay.
Yes.
So it's sorry to talk go around the same point, but I truly believe that
Excuse me.
it's one of the main premises of this whole follow through and accountability thing. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's how do we deal with discomfort? How do we deal with failure? And how do we keep persevering truly? And so getting support and learning how our brain interprets things and
Mhm.
making the desirable thing truly desirable is what's going to make us plot through, because it's easy enough to just throw stuff by the wayside and say, I decided to do it, so it's also my decision to throw it away, which
Mhm.
indeed you can.
That's true. I think that knowing where you're going, right? What you want to do, uh, makes it easier for you to have a clearer understanding of the goal that you're setting. Um, you know, like you said, the 1 minute leader, uh, you you have to. If you don't know where you're going, it's going to be really hard for you to know and measure your goals, right? Because some goals, if not all, can be measured. Most of them is about um, values are measurable, if not all the time. Because if you, let me see how I'm trying to explain this. So the company has values, and you come with your own values, and you're going to set your goals based on your own personal values. But then you have values that you need to accomplish that come from the company, which we mentioned about 2 weeks ago or so. And so if you don't feel aligned with the values that the department, right? And here I'm talking about an individual, but you have to set your goal based on what the department wants to achieve. If you don't feel that you are aligning there, then this is what I tell people. Look, your responsibility is to get the job done, right? Is to get the job done. And like Claudia was saying, make it as nice as possible, make it gratifying, find something that you like that you can say, if I do this, for example, for me, it's buy myself my Starbucks coffee. And I don't even have to go and get it. I order it, they bring it to my house, and I spoil myself that way. But it was after I spent a long time doing the things that I have to do. Now let's talk about the have. It's a language thing, right? Have, you don't have to, but you want to. It's an option what you're doing, what we're doing, what Claudia and I are doing by having our own corporations and going solo is an option. We made a projection, right? We said, this is where I want to go. This is who I want to be, right? Which goes back to knowing where you're going. And then we started breaking down everything we needed to reach that goal. So I want to tell people to be clear. Don't let the moment take you there. Don't give in into pressure, social pressures. Set it in a way that it agrees to your abilities and the abilities that you can develop, as well as the resources that you might need to invest, right? To get to learn something, to take a course, to take a seminar, or if the company has it, well, even better. So know where you're going, people. That's one of the most important things.
Yeah, actually, one of my favorite things to do with my coaching clients and myself as well, if I must admit, is what I call concretizing the vision. People, there's nothing wrong. It's actually hugely fun and beneficial to do some good old-fashioned daydreaming. Yes, yes. So I had this coaching client. She was a lady who wanted to go back to work or figure out what work she would do after she had been bringing up her children for quite an extended amount of time. And she had been a pharmacist beforehand. And we went kind of in circles, exploring her strengths and her desires and her preferences. And it became clear at some point for this client that she wanted to open an alternative treatment practice. There was a treatment that she could learn, she could get certified in, and she could offer that treatment. She could offer it maybe as part in a massage parlor, in a physical therapy kind of parlor, and things like that. It was an alternative medical treatment that would also be used in her cultural subgroup. Okay. So, but see, as we concretized the vision, she started getting certified in this and learning all that. She knew exactly in her mind how her office would look like, how she would get dressed, how her office setup would be, what flowers would be standing on the reception desk, what scent would be in the air, what kind of blankets she would be providing. It was so real to her. And we kept getting back to it. Every session, I would ask her, what else have you figured out? Oh, there's going to be this picture on the wall, right? I mean, literally, it was to that extent. But see, there's something very real that happens there as well, because actually Tony Robbins is also fond of saying that there is no difference to your brain between reality and that which is vividly imagined, because this was not just like, oh yeah, we can do that. She was invested in it. She could smell it. She could feel it. She could absolutely, she was there. In her brain, she was there. It was real already. So if in your brain it is real already once, then all of a sudden the doubt whether it's achievable or not falls away. You already have achieved it once, so likely as you can achieve it again. Okay. So there's truly this know where you're going can be to that extent. Vividly imagined, emotionally imagined, with all your senses intact, imagined. Yeah, it's a very powerful exercise. Daydreaming is really powerful. And so, especially when then you're down in the trenches, associating with a state that is pleasurable, that is based on already having achieved what you said after, is very, very powerful and fun. It's fun, people. Yeah. I mean, yes, it's fun. It's fun. Remember how you used to do it when you were younger? Most of us did it at least when we were kids. And then at some point, maybe it died up a little bit, but everybody's still capable of it. And it's a very, very interesting and powerful exercise. Do you do that, Sandra?
I do. Well, I call it manifestation. We were manifesting yesterday. So, you know, I like I like to, like you said, I imagine the dress that I'm wearing in what I'm dreaming that I want my life to look like. I see myself in that stage. I see myself giving and absorbing, you know, all the energy of the people that are getting something out of the information that I'm giving, you know, being of service, in other words. You know, it 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 is important because every single step I remember, you made me remember when I was very young. My brother was 13 and he was a bright kid. He got to go to, you know, to college at the age of 13.
Wow.
And it made me dream, right? It made me dream of me being in college, what I would do, how I would dress, like your client, you know, my friends, everything, you know. And when I was in college, I was like, oh my God, this is what I was imagining. Every single thing. Yes, you have to do that, because if you don't dream, you know, what's the motivation in that? And so I wanted to say something else. um I know that, for example, when, as an ADDer, I have issues with daydreaming. We do that, and I have to say there's a big amount in the community of people that we start daydreaming, and we can go an entire day doing that. And suddenly when we look at the clock, and I'm pretty sure there's other people, normal people without ADD, that it happens to them, but you spend so many hours dreaming that the problem is that you might be dreaming, but if you don't make it concrete, like Claudia was saying, when you don't, you know, okay, it's not just about the dress, it's not just about the stage. No, what are you doing to make that happen? What skills are you preparing into? What are you reading? What are you doing? What are you investing? Education is one of the best things that you can invest people in. But especially, you might buy a lot of programs, like Claudia was saying earlier, but there's a lot of people that buy programs. And I was telling you this, Claudia, yesterday. And then we don't do anything with it. We just want to have it. We want the knowledge to be there. But knowledge being there is different than to take action. So if you want for things to work, you need to not only read them, but apply them. So that's part of dreaming. So you're not just going to be dreaming. Now, what's the next step to make that dream happen? Or that, in my case, I call it manifestation, right? So manifest, people, go for it. And have people cheering for you, because that's the most important thing.
Yes, and always know that we here at FreudenFreude, we will be cheering for you, okay? It's part of the whole mantra, really, and one of the reasons why we do this. Actually, I was just looking at the time. Can you imagine an hour passed?
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. It's been a really nice conversation. I like this one. This one is kind of, I started feeling alive as we started going through it, because I started thinking about, you know, like you were talking about your client and so on and so on. But anyways, you know,
you see
all
more
good things.
You seem more upbeat than when we started, so that's really great. Thank you
all
so
good things
much.
come to an end.
Thank you so much, everybody, for giving us the opportunity to create this content for you. If you like what you heard, please support us by subscribing and, you know, leave a comment below so we know what you took away from this episode. We will be with you every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Central European Time. And, you know, if you have suggestions or want to be part of the show, let us know. Let us know. Go, in the description, you're going to find ways to get in touch with us, and we'd love to listen. Your success is also then partly our success. How vicariously beautiful is that? Okay, Sandra, great talk. Thank you so much. I can't wait to do the next one, and I guess that's it for today.
Thank you, Claudia. Likewise, it was an amazing conversation. Thank you for the experiences, for sharing. I loved it. Thank you so
Yes.
much, Claudia. I will
Awesome.
see you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.